BPod Studios.
Get ready. It's time now for Zolak and Bertrand. Brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Hour number 2, Zolak and Bertrand today. Phil Perry with us. 617-779-0985. We're trying to rewrite the overtime rules now because they're just different from the rest of the season in the NFL. I can't believe this is the first time we've really experienced this since the change. There were no other overtime games that this came into play.
Yeah, but the league started crapping their pants when it was starting to break that way. Because we all got to have our ducks in line, right? Everybody know what we're doing here. Get the clock ready, get the refs ready. One team was ready, one was not.
How about the broadcasters? Get the broadcasters ready, Zo.
Oh,
did it feel like Tony Romo knew the rule in real time? He was explaining it to us as though he was doing us a service. I think he had just gotten the breakdown himself, probably from Gene Steratore, who was sitting right there next to him.
It was handed to him, and you could tell he was reading it.
Felt that way, didn't it?
He didn't know. He had a bad day.
Would have been better if we had one of these like in the wild card round. Work out all the kinks.
Just give us a feel for how this thing's going to go.
Give us a simulation of how this thing goes. Instead, you end up having it in a Super Bowl.
And now I've got a headache based on how we're trying to solve this thing.
Did you hear
I'm just trying to help out Tiki Barber.
And
I've got a headache.
I'll tell you what, I don't dislike the way it played out in the Super Bowl. I just think that it shouldn't be different from the regular season, whatever you do decide on. You've got to decide on something that remains the same. But
you're okay with ties in the regular season, right? Or no?
I don't love them.
I think you've got to be okay with it just to end the game. To stay true to your point, which is too much sports is a bad thing.
Yeah.
You've got to be okay with ties. You have to be. It's part of the deal.
Can we extend it out to 15 minutes in the regular season?
I could do that for you.
Can we do that?
Yeah, sure.
5 more minutes.
Yeah.
I know that in an NFL game, 5 more minutes of playing is hard. But can we just go to a full quarter and cap it there?
That's as far as I'm willing to go for you.
Oh, well.
Yes.
At least you're making concessions, and we're finding middle ground.
Both touchdown calls by Andy Reid were fantastic. And I don't know if you heard Mahomes after the game at postgame. He said, if 49ers scored first, we were going to go for 2.
Which I love.
Wow.
Great way to negate the third possession.
Talking about going to win the game. I would love to know what play call they had because it was going to be something more exotic than what they scored with at the end. And that's how much confidence where he separates from others, meaning Mahomes, because we're going to put the ball in his hands and he's going to go win it. Yeah, we'll go win it. Confident. That's impressive. That's another thing that none of these other quarterbacks have.
I love Andy Reid. Did you hear him explain the play call after the fact? He did it with Peter King and others. He calls it corn dog, right? Corn dog from last year's Super Bowl, which helped them win the Super Bowl. This was corn dog with a little ketchup and mustard. And it's not the most complex thing, but it's a little shuttle motion, they call it, and it just forces the defense to communicate. And if you're trying to banjo it or combo it or all the stuff that Ted Johnson talks to us about on the breakdown every single week in terms of the Patriots and their rules in coverage, especially in the red zone where it's down and tight, things happen fast, you have to be able to communicate. And just by going in and then out, I think they had it covered if he just stayed in. But by going in and then out, that changes the rules and it changes your leverage, and you have to be able to adjust on the fly. You have to have practiced it, in my opinion. You have to have seen it before.
It's a version of the Edelman return route that he scored on Seattle. What you do is you get play fake going one way, so they all go step left. Mahomes starts riding left. Then he peels out to the right, and that outside guy does a little move down inside. It's that pirouette back outside, and it's easy pitch and catch. I mean, it couldn't have been more simpler. They call that corn dog.
With ketchup and mustard.
He's just such a great offensive mind. And we talk so much about quarterbacks in the draft and what the Patriots should do. And imagine if Patrick Mahomes had landed in a different situation. I don't think we're having some of the conversations that we're having about him as
Chicago.
one of the greatest of all time. If he landed in Chicago in that draft, yes, though. Or if he landed in Houston, it just wouldn't be the same. I think Bill O'Brien's a good offensive coach. Deshaun Watson had a couple good years there down in Houston, same draft class. But he ended up with one of the greatest offensive minds we've ever seen. He's in that conversation now.
Yeah.
And that's how you get to the Mount Rushmore quarterbacks where I think Mahomes is right now.
Vic in Virginia. Hi, Vic.
One thing, do you think Cousins is in play for the Niners with the relationship that Shanahan has with them? And then the second thing was, I don't understand why the regular season overtime wouldn't work well for the Super Bowl. I just don't get why they needed to change that.
Well, because the Buffalo Bills are giant crybabies, and when Patrick Mahomes beat them, they weren't having it.
Well,
They felt they should have continued to get the ball.
I want
and
to
play all night long.
I need a turn.
I want
Phil,
to turn.
you see him spending $90 million on a quarterback?
No, not with Purdy. See, Purdy's too good for you to make a move like that.
Right.
He's probably too good for that. But he's also not good enough to pay him what Cousins is going to want this offseason as a free agent.
Correct.
In all likelihood. Right? Or it's going to be somewhere close. I think Cousins is going to get somewhere between 35 and 40 million bucks a year coming off a devastating injury.
So when's Purdy's deal up?
He has 2 more years left. He is a 7th-round pick, so you don't get that 5th-year option. So he's got two years left, probably making about $1 million a year.
Jesus. Man. Play him a year, come together and do the Jordan Love type deal to where you get a little money and we make sure we know you're the guy and then you can get the big deal. Get him to 2 more NFC title games. Then he'll get paid.
I think you're right. I don't think he's too good for you to move off of him.
I agree.
The alternative is not guaranteed to be better than Brock Purdy. But you just
Too
went
much
to
crapping on him right now.
It's tough though, Zoe, because you just went to the Super Bowl with the best roster in the league.
Yeah.
And you couldn't win because the guy on the other side is just that good. And by the way, the guy on the other side, his roster has got to improve going into 2024. They can't go into another season with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Sky Moore, and they had to sign Mecole Hardman mid-season off the Jet. Like, he's failed with the Jets. He ends up back with Kansas City. Like, that's a joke. That is not a representative NFL caliber receiving core.
So you say they can't, but yet they beat Miami at home. They went on a road to Buffalo, number 2 seed. Number 1 seed in Baltimore, beat them. And then number 1 seed for the Super Bowl to beat the Niners. We beat them with that roster. We can do it again because we have the quarterback.
Don't you think they probably feel as though they would like to give themselves a little more breathing room, though, Zoe? Like, if they could figure it out, and they could probably figure it out, right? Restructure a few deals, figure out a way to spend some money, and go get, I'm talking about the Patriots signing Calvin Ridley. Go get Calvin Ridley, or go get Michael Pittman. Go get somebody that you know knows how to catch the ball consistently, because they didn't have that all year. If they just get him a piece, you're looking at them making another run to a Super Bowl and winning 3 in a row, potentially. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that they were able to do what they did this year, the road that they were on with the offense they had. And missing probably their best offensive lineman in the Super Bowl, too.
We'll continue this conversation with you coming up next here on Zolak and Bertrand with Phil Perry.
This is the show that keeps Boston sports fans working.
Yeah, I'm a sexual freak.
Zolak and Bertrand.
That's stuff we do.
On the Sports Hub.
There could be another thing you could add into overtime. How about no field goals? You must score touchdowns in overtime. What if you changed overtime to have that?
Ooh.
And no PATs.
Must go for 2?
Touchdown, and you got to go for 2.
What if you did
That's
that?
hard. That's hard.
You take the ball first? Well, you got to score a touchdown. So and this is what it negates. That idea that if you have the ball second, as the Chiefs wanted it second, and everything is 4-down territory, well, everything's 4-down territory for everybody in this game now. You must score a touchdown.
I kind of like that.
I mean, I am in favor of fewer kicks.
Yes.
Generally speaking.
Yes.
I am generally speaking in favor of fewer kicks. I feel like we're now getting away from football, though. We are now, if you do this, you're leaning maybe too far in the other direction, where what you're doing in overtime is so different from what you're doing before overtime that it feels like a little bit of a bastardization of the game. And so as someone who is generally opposed to more kicks, I'm going to be opposed to this one. I want that to be part of the strategy. I still do want there to be some football strategy involved. I want teams to have to figure out, do we punt, do we kick, do we go for it on fourth down? I like those decisions. Those decisions give us something to talk about. If you lose that, well, now you start talking about losing it in regular season play, which I think you might be for.
I'm not against that.
Having listened to you before, Beetle.
Oh yeah, no, I'm again. My main point is I advocate for consistency in overtime rules, both in the regular season and playoffs of every sport. I think they should be more consistent from regular season, the games you play the most of all year long, to the games you're playing when it does matter most at the end. More consistency. And if that means no field goals, touchdowns only, I'm for it. Across the board.
Zoe, break the tie.
I like the college rule, where you get the ball in the 20, and each team gets it, and then what is it? After the second time, you have to go for two, where you're allowed to kick it at the first possession, but after that, we're going to start going from two from that point forward. Michigan won the national title. Was that a fourth down stop, or was that a going for two stop? When Alabama, the quarterback, remember Philly ran up the middle? It was a terrible call.
That was a fourth.
Right? Or was that fourth?
I thought it was.
Okay.
I thought that was a fourth.
Regardless.
Yeah.
I like sudden death. I told you, I'm an old school guy.
Okay, but break the tie. No touchdowns or field goals. All touchdowns.
Field goals.
Okay, no field goals.
No field goals.
No field goals.
Wow.
Not even close.
As an old school guy.
I'm not putting it on some dork kicker to win the game.
Right.
Give me the beef up front. Give me the most talented backfield, the receivers, the quarterback, not some long snapper and a holder. Guy that holds, it's never been hit. Can you run over the kicker and run over the holder then? Let's make them live.
Okay. Protections off the kickers.
I'll bring the kick back in, but it's kill shot time.
Now we're negotiating. I like this.
I'll kick you when he kicks, you'll miss.
Oh, man.
I want you guys to know. I want you to know what you're getting into here. If this is a movement that you start, you're not going to have those conversations about Dan Campbell going for it on fourth down anymore. Because now everybody's going for it on fourth down. You're not going to be able to tell him he's an idiot. You're not going to be able to call him a meathead. That's what everybody's going to do the same thing. It's going to remove the value of having a good coach because your decisions are limited. You are removing the number of choices that a team has to make
in overtime
on a series-to-series basis.
I'm
saying yes. You're saying overtime. I'm saying eventually that's going to work its way into the regular season if you make
get rid of the kickers.
Yeah, it's like the kickoff.
Well, I don't
it's
think
like a slow death. This is how the league does things. They start to get rid of the kickoff. They start. Eventually, it'll be the punt. Then it'll be overtime. They won't have them at all, and then eventually there will be no kicking in the NFL.
I feel like the punt is a better play than the kickoff.
It is.
Not even close.
It is
the
now.
Punt to me is a real
play. You got a turnover off one the other day. Phil, you know what I hate the most, too, about that whole first kickoff or taking the ball? Shanahan going to his analytics team and, running it by them. You're the head coach. You've just coached the game. You know which players are responding and which aren't. That is such a feel-type thing as to, ooh, this is what I like my team to do. Even Dan Campbell, just at that time, even though we were up 2 scores, they chew clock. We wanted to get up another. I wanted my offense to get up. He knew what he wanted to do, not what the analytical team wanted to do. Yeah, we ran it by analytics. Shanahan said that. One of the biggest decisions in the game. We're going to put it on analytics. Does he have any feel for the game? We know he can coach a game. But the infill game, 28-3, time's running out. You've got the control. You've got the lead. You're throwing the ball all over the place. I mean, this guy's been a part of some of the biggest collapses in Super Bowls as a coordinator and as a head coach.
I'm feeling some self-doubt. I'm sensing some self-doubt
It's almost
from
like
Shanahan.
He needs it.
Because, Zoe, you're right. Does he trust his own feel for the game? I don't think he trusted his feel for that moment, understanding that it hadn't happened before, right? And so that's his excuse for going to the analytics department saying, what do the numbers say? Which it's never happened before, and so just tell me.
You're playing against a unicorn.
Exactly. And that's what you should be taking into account.
Analytics are off the table. Super Bowl off the table. This isn't Game 7. Gee, well, we did this in Game 7. We always talk about that when we do analytics. Well, let's go back to that road trip we had. No, different day, long day, extra long halftime. The pressure on these kids is monumental. Analytics doesn't factor that in.
And I don't think, there are, and I'm sure their analytics department did it, but I think ESPN's analytics department did it. I'm sure there are others who, because this rule was new, they ran thousands of simulations of what would occur on a percentage basis in a situation like this one. Which team would win? Would it be the team that takes the ball first, team that takes the ball second, and you let it play out? According to ESPN's analytics department, thousands of simulations showed that the better move by less than half of 1% was to take the ball first and try to have that third opportunity. But again, you're going against Patrick Mahomes, and you're giving him the benefit of what the analytics people would call second-order thinking. When you take the ball second, you understand what the score is. You know what score you need to tie the game, what score you need to win the game. Now you have 4 downs at your disposal, if you so choose, to be able to maximize your ability to win that football game.
Your story's laid out for you. Yeah.
4 downs, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, biggest game of the year. The analytics departments don't account for that. The thousands of simulations aren't all with Patrick Mahomes on the other side. And so I much would have rathered Shanahan saying, Beetle, the reason we wanted the ball first is because we wanted our defense off the field. Our defense was gassed. We're run by our defensive line. Those big bodies, it's a long game, as Zoe just mentioned, long halftime. We're chasing Patrick Mahomes around for 60 minutes. They needed a blow. I would have much rather he say that and use that as his excuse, as opposed to, well, our analytics department ran thousands of simulations and we had a 0.3% chance better of winning than if we had gone second. I hate that, and I wonder if it's because he's not confident in his own feel for the game because of his experience losing some of these tight, late, big games. So just tell me what the numbers say, because you don't trust yourself. That's a problem for a guy who's considered one of the best in the league.
He's overrated. That's what it comes down to. We've got headlines with Phil right now. We'll grab your calls next.
Sports Hub.
Now,
Look at all the suits.
Zolak and Bertrand on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Welcome back to Zolak and Bertrand. I'm Phil Perry, here with Mark the Beetle Bertrand.
Phil Perry.
Scott Zolak on location. So we're trying to figure out the overtime rules here. We talked about Patriots quarterbacks. We got Beetle back with us now.
Yeah, real quick here, during the break here, I was watching TikTok of the Andy Reid play call where Peter King is hovering over him.
Yes, sir.
And Peter's trying to take the notes. And, we got Mecole in. We could go jet here. But I want to go, say if we get in this situation, I want to go trips right bunch, shuttle motion, and gets us to corn dog. And Peter's like, well, what's the motion? He goes, shuttle motion. Come on, Peter.
Come on, Peter, keep up.
But to hear Andy explain it and what he's looking for, and he's staring at that Cheesecake Factory play sheet, well, we could do this or we could do that, but bang, ultimately gets us back to corn dog, and that's the game winner. Pretty good stuff.
He's got so many winners, Zoe, in the right situations. And you mentioned, or Beetle mentioned earlier, that had the Niners scored a touchdown and kicked the extra point, that the Chiefs were going to try to go down,
They're
score a
gonna for
touchdown,
two.
and go for two. How many, generally speaking, 2-point types of calls would an NFL team have in your experience? And how many do you think Andy Reid has? Because I feel like he probably just has variations of what we saw on Sunday or what we saw in last year's Super Bowl, where he could run a dozen or more different types of plays from the 5 and in and just feel like they're automatic.
We would practice 2 every Friday. 2 different ones.
For the 2-point, specifically?
For the 2-point play. Yeah, got to have it play. You remember the Patriots ones where they practiced the direct snap over Brady's head so many times, and they really didn't run at the beginning. And the other one was that slip screen pass down to Amendola.
Oh yeah, that little
slip
screen, tunnel screen, whatever that was. Yeah,
just off the quick block by Edelman, but it's all situationally speaking and based on the type of defense you get. Like, that's going to be hard to run against zone. You need that to run against man. So it's probably got to be audible on the fly. You give Tom 2 plays and go with it.
I also found it interesting because I saw that same clip that you mentioned, though, with Peter King. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was the personnel package that they had where he mentions they had 2 tight ends on the field.
Yep.
But there was a name, it sounded like, to get Mecole Hardman on the field. I don't know if it was Tiger or another term that they use to get Hardman on the field. And that's the kind of play, the kind of motion that I think you have to have someone who is lightning fast to be able to really stress the defense with. Right?
Correct.
If you run Kelsey on that motion, it probably doesn't impact them in the same way.
Right.
Even though he's a great player. He just doesn't have the kind of speed to make them think quickly. And he doesn't have that kind of change of direction that Hardman does. He's not a great player, but he is fast. It's the one thing he can do.
Yeah. Or Kendrick Bourne, like run out on a jet sweep on Thursday Night Football up in Minnesota. Yeah. No, it doesn't work.
You've just got to be able. You've got to have someone. That's just, again, that I think points to the greatness of Andy Reid. Mecole Hardman is a nobody. He's an afterthought.
You're not sitting there as you're Andy Reid saying, okay, my Super Bowl champion is going to be Mecole Hardman.
Right.
Hardman.
But he had a play that in that situation at the goal line, okay, how do we play with their heads here? Who's our fast? Who can change direction like that? So that on that shuttle motion where you got to go inside and then out, it's really really going to cause a problem. They found a role for that guy who was a cast off of the Jets.
You got a motion. I mean, that's the biggest thing we take from all of these teams, whether it's West Coast, whether it's McVay, whether it's Cincinnati, whether it's 49ers. Motion sets it. Motion backs you off. Motion makes you check out of things. Motion gives you a free release. That's how they get Kelsey going. Like, they just move him around. You don't get a jam on him.
I think good news, though, is that this offense, being a derivative of the Shanahan offense to a degree, with Alex Van Pelt, I think you're going to see a lot of Patriots motion this coming season. It's what everybody's doing. It felt like that in the Super Bowl. Yeah. Every play, it felt like, had some kind of motion.
617-779-0985. Dean and Shrewsbury on the overtime rules. Hi, Dean.
Hi. So the way I change overtime rules is instead of a coin flip, and I do this even at the beginning of games, is make it part of a home field advantage. The team that's the home team gets to choose even in the regular season. And for the playoffs, this would give extra incentive to be the better team during the regular season. And then I'd go to the old overtime rules where a field goal continues the game and a touchdown ends it.
I do like his eliminate the flipping of the coin in an overtime all the time. Home team chooses. What do you want? You're home. What do you want? Super Bowl, team with the better record, better seed in the regular season. You choose. You're the home team. You're the home team for this game. You've been named the home team for that reason. I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. It would get weird in the Super Bowl, though.
It would.
Because you could have 2 12-4 teams that were the 1 seeds get to the then what do you do?
All right. So
go to point scored or point differential or something like that?
Let's keep it to playoff games and regular season games. There's no need for the flip. The home team chooses.
Dark jerseys.
What?
Dark jerseys. Dark jerseys call it. It's that simple. You get two 12-1 teams. Dark jersey one calls it.
I mean, there is technically a home team for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there is.
So
right.
you could just use that as the.
But doesn't that just alternate?
It does.
Yeah.
But
every year.
There you
So
go.
that's your last tiebreaker.
Don't coin flips just alternate? It's literally an alternating coin flipping through the air. Why not just decide it? Just save us the time of that.
Well, it's luck.
And just tell us the home team gets to choose. The home team chose this, and we move on. We shorten up the process.
If the Patriots get in the Super Bowl next year, they're the all blue.
You think they're getting in the Super Bowl, huh? That's funny. You better put your bet in now at 150 to 1.
100 million to 1.
That's where Zoe's mind goes. What are the jerseys going to look like when the Patriots get in the Super Bowl next?
Not bad.
Well, I don't think you're going to have that problem for a little while, Zoe.
That's okay.
Chris in Hartford. What's up, Chris?
Hey, fellas. Beetle, big kudos to you last night about the Jaylen Brown before I get my football. That was very malicious and dangerous. No need. Shows the mark of a man. A very little man he is inside of that 6'6" frame. And it's also kudos to hang out on the set with a guy like Giles, who's a moron. Okay? You guys really know sports. I give you a lot of credit because you're hanging out with puppets. Okay.
Why is Giles? What was it
about
about Giles that offended you so much last night to the point of calling him a moron?
Well, he liked the fact he won't do this again. Giles was saying, I kind of like this toughness. That's not being tough, Jaylen Brown doing that. That's dangerous. That's like walking up to an old man and punching him in the head.
Chris, come on, Chris.
I don't know that there is a comp there to punching an old man in the head.
That is
but there's
insane.
something. We've got it on the rundown today. We will get to it again.
It's completely insane. And heat of battle. I don't know how many competitive sports Chris has played in. Sometimes you lose your mind for a second. I don't think he was trying to rip the guy's arm off. He was saying, get off of me.
I'd be more accepting of it if he just said, yeah, maybe I wouldn't do that to him again. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. But to double down on it after the game. And I think everybody involved, from a Celtics perspective, Celtics fans who watch that, are, we'll just save it. We'll get to it. We'll just get to it. I'm not going to get into it now.
Punch an old man in the head.
Yeah, that's not quite that bad.
What are you talking about?
It's not elderly abuse, okay? It's not what Travis Kelce did to Andy Reid the other night. Not Pedro Don Zimmer. It's nothing like that. Bob's in Winthrop. What's up, Bob?
Hey, Bob.
Good morning, guys. What's going on?
What's up, Bob?
Oh, not a lot.
All right. So here's what we should do. Mark always says this: checkers rather than chess. And I think in terms of overtime, we should look at that approach. In the regular season, I'd play a 10-minute quarter. If it's tied, it's a tie because it's the regular season. In the postseason, if you want to extend it to 15 minutes, full quarter at the end of the 15 minutes. If it's tied, now it's sudden death. I just keep it simple. This way, if a team goes up in overtime, well, they have to make a stop and maybe have to run out the clock. It feels like regular football rather than getting gimmicky. And because I think you can kind of compare it a little bit to basketball, which has the best overtime. You play a 5-minute quarter. I just keep it simple. 10 minutes overtime in the regular season, maybe extend it to 15.
But you're saying same rules, same scoring rules, Bob? The first touchdown wins?
Yeah.
Okay, I like his solution. I like what Bob came up with here. We're going to make one adjustment because the playoffs are different. You have to determine a winner. We'll stretch that thing out to 15 minutes. I like what he did. I like it. I like it, Phil.
Did he say first touchdown period? So first?
The scoring rules as they are now in the regular season. Regular season, we'll keep it to 10 minutes. We get to the playoffs, we'll extend it to 15. It'll give you a little bit more time if you're a team that possesses the ball second and the first team kicked a field goal. It gives you more time to work with to go down and get your touchdown.
Got it. And then I think what he said was after two possessions, so after each team has had the ball.
Or at the end of the 15 minutes, it's
next score wins. Got it. Yeah, I don't hate that.
Assuming you're still in a tie at the end of those 15 minutes and you need to continue. If not, the game is over.
And that
you don't
that way you work in the clock.
Yes.
The clock is a factor now. Yes.
Which the other night would have meant that, yes, you had a right to possess it, and this is what I was saying. Make the clock count. Make the Chiefs score before the end of those 15 minutes or they lose the game. Wouldn't that have been fun the other night? Patrick Mahomes has the ball second, and he's got to battle against not only the 49ers to get the touchdown for a win, he's got the clock to worry about.
I like it. This is not something that I even had considered until I heard Tiki Barber talk about it.
Yeah.
And I was expecting to lambaste his take.
Bob, I think you solved it.
But I think Bob solved it right there.
And you used one of my guiding principles, which is play checkers, not chess. Okay?
Keep it simple.
Why not play checkers? Right?
Yeah, it's a totally fine game.
Sometimes it's fine to play checkers. Sometimes you don't have to get too complicated with it. You can find a more simple solution. And Bob just did that for us. That happened here today, fellas.
Bob.
That happened. Bob, thank you.
Bob.
Hashtag thank you, Bob.
That's our listener, Bob. Bob. 617-779-0985. I mentioned those odds for the Patriots. How far off are they from competing with some of the best teams in the National Football League? We'll touch on that next.
Today, Americans of every age are in need of
Scott Zolak, Mike Bertrand,
essential part of community life.
Sports Zone.
Six 617-779-0985. Patriots have long odds to win the Super Bowl. They are at the bottom of the league. The only team with worse odds than the Patriots are the Carolina Panthers. That's it. The Patriots are right there at the bottom of the bucket in the NFL. How far of a way do they have to go? How long is the ride from here back to relevance, back to competing for a championship? Maybe not winning, but at least competing for one.
Well, it starts with your division, right? Find a way to get to 8-8. Find a way to get to 8-9. 9-8, I think you're in the mix. All these teams in the AFC this year, and that's the most frustrating part about the type of year that you had is this is the year you could have done it. You know, third year of a quarterback where you could have loaded the roster around him before you get to that jump year where you got to make a decision whether you're going to pick up his option. Could have built a team there. Burrow got hurt. Obviously, Lamar was not what Lamar was. It never was in the playoffs. And Mahomes and that team was pretty down. But they survived, and they found a way to get it done at the end. It's pretty impressive, the 4-team run they went on at the end. But of all the years, there was no world beater. I don't know if we'll have world beaters. And that's a big thing.
So do you think? I think it's realistic to say what Zoe's talking about. Get to 9-8. Can they get to 9-8 in 2 years?
Not next year, 2 years.
I think
be in
2
the mix
years.
in 2 years.
2 years. I think expecting them to go from 4-13 to 10 wins in 1 year is it's what the Texans did this past year. C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, that thing comes together. They go from 3-13-1 to 10-7 in the playoffs. I don't think that's realistic. Maybe if you hit on a great quarterback, maybe you could do something like that. But even then, they had a good left tackle in Laramie Tunsil. They had Shaq Mason on that offensive line. They had some decent pieces on the offensive side before dropping in the quarterback and the rookie receiver who ended up being pretty good. So 1 year, you're not doing that. Can you do it in 2 years? And then 4 years from now, can you be not just sniffing the playoffs, but can you be a true contender? Can you be actually looking at yourselves before the season begins and say, we got a shot. We got a shot to go to a conference championship game. And if we do that, then anything can happen. I think 4 years is what you're looking at. It doesn't have to be 9, 10. Like, it's not that kind of rebuild. That's just not how the league works.
4 years if things go really well.
If you do a good job, 4 years, you should be back in the mix. That's what I believe. You have to draft well. You have to sign smart, effective free agents. It's got to be a really well-done team build, yes.
4 years if you do it right. And a lot of teams can't get it right because mistakes are made along the way. Mistakes are made in drafting. Mistakes are made in free agency. You can't find the quarterback. There are so many variables. Your coaching staff isn't good enough. There are all kinds of things that can roadblock that 4-year path. So 4 years if everything goes perfectly. It's a bad place to be.
It's horrible.
Real bad.
It's horrible.
And all this is just feasibly possible if you hit the draft. What if you don't hit your draft? What if you have 2 free agent busts? You're going backwards. You become Carolina. That's possible. I don't think it's possible, but anything is possible. I do think they have some smart guys there. And, Bill picked the team. Let's allow a year to see if we can pick some good players here.
Do you know what changed for the teams that had the most dramatic improvements in record all time? So the best team ever, the best turnaround from season to season in the history of the league was the 1999 Indianapolis Colts. Do you know what happened? Peyton Manning hit year 2, and they won 13 games. They won 3 the year before. In other modern times, you had the Dolphins, who had a massive increase from 2007 until 2008. In 2008, the Dolphins won 11 games. In 2007, they had won a game. They went from a 1-win team to an 11-win team, and the way they did it was they got a free agent. Was it a free agent or a trade situation when Chad Pennington went there?
Trade.
They trade for him? I couldn't remember.
No. I can't remember either. Yeah, because he's first-round pick for Jets.
But that was the change. They got a quarterback. They made some other roster improvements as well, but that's how they went from a 1-win team to an 11-win team. Their quarterback situation sucked, and then they got a guy who could play a little bit, and it improved things dramatically. Also in there, top 5 all-time improvement is the Dallas Cowboys from 2015 until 2016, and 2016 marked the arrival of Dak Prescott.
Wow. And he came out of nowhere.
So those are
rounds.
3 of the top 5 improvements all time in the history of the league from one season to the next. The New England Patriots, funny enough, are on that list in the 1970s. The 1976 Patriots were 11-3. They were 3-11 the year before. So they are one of the teams that had one of those dramatic improvements.
Was that quarterback related as well?
Well, I could tell you this, that Steve Grogan was on the team the year before. And when he took over as the guy in 76, they had a much better record. He was 1-6 as a starter the year before.
Okay. Not the full-time starter.
No.
I think even, look at just a few years ago with the Bengals, right? This is the example that I keep bringing up for the Patriots because that was a horrible roster. Horrible. In 2020. They drafted Joe Burrow at the top of the first round, T. Higgins at the top of the second round. They still only won 4 games that year, but the next year, they end up winning 10, and they go to the playoffs. And they were able to add, because they sucked in Burrow's rookie season, they were able to add Jamar Chase. Now you've got 2 stars outside your star quarterback. You figure it out with other pieces along the way, and you're